Hello and welcome to our latest rendition of Fathom's Remote Roundtable series. My name is Steve Kessen. I'm our CEO here at Fathom, and so delighted to be joined by each of you today as we bring marketers together. As we continue to operate in this COVID-driven world, the power of connection and collaboration is so important. And that's why we've created this series to bring marketers together with other marketers to talk about important topics. And I am really delighted today to bring forth Barbara Moreno from Allied Universal, sharing her experience on how she has built truly a marketing powerhouse within this multi-billion-dollar organization. So she will be the headline for the day, and you're in for a real treat. As we jump into the conversation here, just a few ground rules to help set us up for success in our time together. First is we should all be pros by this by now. But remember to mute, unmute. So please, make sure you're unmuted when you're ready to speak. I'd also at this time invite each of you to share your video. I know we're all working maybe in different locations, but there's just great power and connection. So if you can share your video, I'd really invite you to do so at this time. And if you need any support throughout this experience today, go ahead and use the chat function within Zoom, and we'll be able to handle any of those issues. And really, it's about coming together to engage. This is intended to be a discussion, not just a presentation. So the idea here is we want to really make sure this is a good use of your time, and you get what you are looking for out of it. And in that, let's start the engagement actually right away. So I'm going to call on one or two of you to help us just kick off in terms of the engagement. And I would love to have one or two of you just introduce yourself, maybe what you're trying to get out of the conversation today, and we'll go from there. So let me go ahead and I'll start with Mackenzie. Mackenzie, would you mind just sharing, and so great to have you joining us, share a little bit about what you're hoping to get out of the conversation today and where you work and so on.
So I work at Pearson Kelly Technology. It is a relatively small technology MSP managed service provider in the Springfield, Missouri area. We also have clients down in Arkansas, Joplin Market, Kansas, kind of that area. And really, I'm just here for new perspectives. I started at this company right before the pandemic hit, literally 3 weeks before I was sent home. So a lot of this I've been learning on the fly, haven't really been able to talk to customers a whole lot just because everybody's been so siloed. So just different perspectives from you guys on ways to do marketing in this really crazy time. Awesome.
So great to have you. A really interesting time to start a new role, and I think the discussion today will really provide a lot of value today. We'll do one more. Katura, would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I'm impressed you got my name right. Usually people don't call on me because they're worried about mispronouncing my name. But yeah, I think I could echo Mackenzie. I actually work for Kent State University. I work for a regional campus of Kent State, sort of in an admissions/marketing role, and new with Fathom. So this was an opportunity that went out, and I was like, this would be great to hear from people outside of higher ed, because it's a little bit of an insular world, right? Like, I never get to see anyone that's not higher ed. So I was like, this is a good opportunity for us to hear other perspectives and just kind of hear what folks are doing in sort of corporate and other worlds.
Very good. No, we're delighted to have you. And I would encourage, anybody else that didn't have a chance to introduce yourself, just go ahead and introduce yourself via the chat. So people have a sense for who we all have on the line today. As we venture into the conversation today, I also want to just provide a little bit of perspective on who is helping bring this conversation to you. So at Fathom, we're digital marketers who believe strong strategy starts with deep roots. And really what that means, it's making sure that we're deeply connected into your business. We can bring a lot of expertise and experience to your business and your industry, but we recognize every organization's unique. And we pair that getting to know your organizations with our own deep expertise in digital to ultimately focus on driving outcomes for our clients. And at the end of the day, that's what matters. And so Fathom's a digital marketing firm that provides lots of different services within the whole digital realm. And you'll see here in the middle or on search engine optimization, or paid search, or marketing automation, and so on. And we've had various roundtables on those topics. But today is bringing it all together. And enough about Fathom. I would love to, really introduce the topic further. And I'm going to start by introducing my colleague, Brittany Trafis. Brittany Trafis is our Executive Vice President of Client Partnership here at Fathom. She also happens to be the account partner, working very closely with Barbara and the entire team at Allied Universal. So Brittany, take it away.
Thanks, Steve. So as he was mentioning, we've been a longstanding partner with Allied Universal, even dating back to like 5 years ago. They were Allied Barton, and have gone through lots of acquisitions, which has brought a lot of change to Allied Universal. And just like marketers, lots of change happening. And marketing leaders are really in a spot where we really have no choice but to drive change and lead to outcomes. And there's a lot of high stakes. I think a lot of us are feeling that right now, especially in this COVID world. But even if you take COVID out of it, we are being asked a lot as marketing leaders to drive change and lead outcomes. And this is something I've seen Barbara do very well. So she's been at Allied Universal for almost 2 years now. And what she's been able to do in the 2 years is beyond impressive. I'm really excited for everyone to be able to ask some questions, for her to share her mindset, and really how she worked through 4 key areas to move her team from being a marketing team of doers with no plan to a marketing, it might sound cliche, but powerhouse, where we have such a strong plan and have become such a critical part of the business. So I'd love to introduce Barbara. And Barbara, I'll let you take it from here. If you can start sharing, what are the 4 key areas that you work through to drive your team forward?
Well, hello everyone, and I'm honored to be here with you all today. So I am Barbara Moreno. I'm Vice President of Marketing at Allied Universal. I joined the company November 2018. And as Brittany mentioned, marketing leaders, when new leaders joining an organization, really are expected to drive business outcomes from day one. So there's usually high expectations coming into an organization to prove value from the marketing function. And so what we're going to talk about today, are really these 4 kind of key areas. One is to be able to assess your team's organizational strengths and opportunity areas, being able to have kind of a vision and outlook for growth, and what what you want from a marketing force or team, and then to also to navigate landmines and what to avoid and how to move forward. So those are some of the key areas that we're going to discuss today. So I mentioned that I joined late in 2018. When I joined, we had a great team in place, very talented individuals, but it was unclear of what each person's roles were, what the structure of the group would be. Marketing was not seen as a value driver for the organization. And what I mean by that is, the rest of the organization knew that we had a marketing force, but nobody knew the value that that marketing was bringing. Then in addition, we had agencies that were in place with overlapping skill sets and projects that kind of lacked clarity. And it was unclear to each of the agency partners and to our internal staff is how the agencies were contributing strategically. Our team goals were not aligned with business objectives. In fact, when I came in, I asked what the corporate priorities are and corporate business objectives were, and nobody seemed to know. So red flag right there. You need to understand where your organization is going, and then your marketing efforts should really align with where the company objectives are. We had no documented marketing plan, and so we are an $8.5 billion organization. So it kind of blew my mind. We had no marketing plan or roadmap of where we were going to go with the marketing function and how we were going to contribute to the company's growth. And then lastly, there was no tracking of performance related to marketing activities. So we had no idea if what we were doing was making an impact and how to optimize and deliver some more efficiencies within the team and then for the organization. So, you know, in the first 6 months, in my experience, I had to identify and evaluate our partners and our agency partners. And in this case, you know, really working with Fathom and how can you leverage agency partners to drive strategic value and help kind of further define the team and get you on the mission to grow and expand. Second, it was gathering everybody together, agency partners and the marketing staff, to define team values. So what did the team want to stand for? What were those values and behaviors that we wanted to live by? And setting those so that we form kind of a culture within marketing. Then it was setting key milestones and measurable KPIs. So I have a very talented team. They were all doing lots of stuff, but it was establishing KPIs so that we knew if those activities were effective or not. And then we worked to prioritize critical initiatives and establish a roadmap and a strategic marketing plan. So everybody had a sense of how we were contributing to the overall organization's objectives and holding folks accountable to their activities throughout the year of how they were going to line up with what we wanted to do as a company. And I think the most important thing is, you know, if you're a leader coming into an organization where there's not much structure and you have the same situation, my advice would be, don't let perfect get in the way of progress. So it's very much a journey, you know, along the way. And, you know, we made a lot of progress in the first 6 months. We're continuing to evolve as a marketing team here at Allied Universal. So I'm going to pause there and put it back to Brittany.
Yeah, I think those were all great points, Barbara. And the one that there's two key points that really stick out for me here. And I know we've spent a lot of time talking about them one-on-one too, is, you know, the first that you had mentioned of really leaning on those agency partners. And I think when there's times when there's like a lot of that uncertainty and you're in the progress of trying to figure out up from down and what are some of those business objectives, leaning on the agency partners to really help provide some of that support in like the early forming and shaping and leading strategically. So where do we have those skills gaps? How can we help? And like, I mean, those are honestly like some of my favorite times. I remember like us up at a whiteboard, right? And saying, okay, what is our plan and where are we going together? Mm-hmm. And the power of having everybody in the same room. So it was the full Allied Universal marketing team. It was all agency partners and not just digital. I mean, we had brand, we had PR, we had all the critical voices there together creating this plan. And I really think that's what's driven a lot of the success moving forward is we keep coming back to our plan and saying, okay, are we there? Oh, let's adjust a little bit. Or, yep, hey, we hit our plan. And, you know, I'd be curious for, you know, if you could share just a little bit of how that roadmap and that plan that we've had together with your team and us has played a role in building out Allied Universal's marketing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the very first step, right, is, you know, for a team of folks to be able to understand what is their roles and responsibilities and how do they contribute to the team at large. You know, once roles and responsibilities and milestones and KPIs are determined by each person, then everybody has a sense of how they contribute to the larger initiative. And so it's absolutely important to do that. And then, you know, for a marketing leader to identify kind of where their internal team strengths and opportunity areas are, and then leveraging those agency partners, as you mentioned, Brittany, to help kind of fill in the gaps and help move us forward.
That's great. Yeah, I think that's where we see a lot of that success too, of just having those KPIs. And from, like you were saying, from an internal, it's building up towards the full picture. And then I guess I'll give the agency voice too, of it helps us with our team to know that we're also working towards that. And I think that's where it really comes back to, I think the biggest key to success for you was you didn't let perfect get in the way of the progress. Like you could have easily said, like, I need 1 year, heads down. And instead it was like, all right, it's November. I have a plan. All right, by January 1, we'll have that plan. And I think that being agile as a marketer is what's going to help you really lead that change in those outcomes.
Absolutely. So I think, when you build kind of a marketing team and set up a marketing team for success, it's important to kind of, first assess your team's skill sets and identify training and stretch projects for each person of the team, okay? So that you continue to evolve the individuals on your team. It's also important to find the right partners quickly, assess the right partners, make sure you have the right agency partners that are not just going to provide what your internal team can do, but can augment it and take the business in a different direction. Expand your marketing thinking, expand your strategy thinking, because again, the more value you can provide, start to demonstrate as a marketing leader, the better off you are in terms of demonstrating to your organization that marketing can really help drive the business forward. Having a vision for the future. So, and how are you going to get there? So again, that also is very important is, when I look at our team, my first year, the vision was just to build a foundation, get the foundation strong and get it right. And then, map out the journey of what it looks like. So, our year 2 for us was starting to really demonstrate the value we provide. And I think we've done a really great job at doing that this year. And next year will be about even augmenting that even further and being more efficient in our activities. So having a roadmap or a vision as a marketing leader of where you are in the journey and where you want to go is super important. Investing time in developmental feedback and holding your team accountable. So don't just create a marketing plan and have it be a one and done. Check in with your folks, every so often to make sure everybody's on track and contributing and understanding what they're learning from the activities and how they can grow and develop. That's the time also to talk about stretch projects that can expand people's thinking. And then lastly, having a strong rapport with senior leaders. So being a marketing leader, it's also important not only to manage down, like I mentioned, but to also manage up. And so having a good rapport and being able to sell those senior leaders within your organization on what your marketing vision is, what the plan is, what the journey looks like, and then updating along the way is incredibly important. So I'll turn it back to you, Brittany.
I think Steve's trying to get off mute. I could see him.
Oh, okay.
You'd think you would figure out where that mute button is, but you find your mouse first. No, I mean, I think that's a really powerful perspective, Barbara. And, I think a lot of what you've brought forth is, hey, you're the leader of this marketing organization and marketing team, and you need to take account of your team members as well as your agency partners and so on. But you also started to hint at there are other stakeholders involved. You certainly have the rest of the executive team, and all of us have seen the stats of, hey, the marketing leader is the shortest tenured C-suite position out there. So there's a lot of pressure on marketers today. And I would just love for you to potentially lend a voice to how are you, working with your stakeholders to take that same level of confidence that you've instilled within your internal team and your partners to, to the C-suite and your stakeholders beyond.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few things, and what I'd say is the process that I just talked about I've used several times in my career. I mean, Allied Universal is an $8.5 billion company, but I've worked with very small organizations and went through the same process. So having a marketing plan, a roadmap, talent development, and focus there are all very important things. No matter what size of business you are or type of business you are, I think it's, those skill sets are very, or those tactics are very important. In terms of C-suite, it's absolutely critical to have a good connection, a good relationship with managers or senior leaders within the organization. It just absolutely is. And I will, tell you, when I came in, that my predecessors had very few conversations with C-suite leaders. And part of that is because those conversations weren't happening, there was a view that marketing was not adding value. There was no idea of what marketing was doing and demonstrating. And so I make it a regular practice. I mean, our team with our collective agency partners do regular quarterly reviews to recap how are we doing against our marketing plan and our objectives? What types of results are we driving? And every quarter I use those findings to sit down with our CEO and walk him through the value that we're bringing as an organization. And very regularly I say, here's where the group is, here's where I want to take the group. What are your thoughts? We have regular conversations about where we're going. And, I would say we very much have evolved from this place here at Allied Universal of starting with building a foundation to really demonstrating driving value through the organization, which was a significant leap, I think, and we're still on the journey to make sure that we're driving value with all the stakeholders within our organization as best we can so that we can move the business forward. And so yeah, I mean, having a relationship and laddering up what you're doing and how you're driving value is just incredibly, incredibly important.
I think one piece I would add on to that too is, and Barbara, you did this really well, and I think it's good advice for all marketers, especially as you're coming into new teams, is you brought the executive team along the journey with you. So you didn't just come in and say, okay, I'm the new person, here's my plan. Yeah, I'm gonna have regular check-ins. Like, you've brought them along that maturity and growth curve with the team. So it hasn't just been the marketing team going on the journey. Like, you've brought the CEO along that journey too. Like, let's talk about paid advertising. I think that was like a key to success for you too.
Yeah, so I'll give an example. I mean, we just launched a new brand advertising campaign, and my day one, when I interviewed with our CEO, before I even came here, I said this is something that I wanted to do within our organization. And he was involved from the very beginning. I involved him with the research that we did with stakeholders all the way through the development process. And very intentional. I did that because I wanted to make sure he was on board with the vision and where we wanted to go, and get his buy-in along the way. And so it's things like that is, of having those regular conversations and thinking as a marketing leader, who are those stakeholders that you need to be behind you to grow and develop your team, to push the team, to provide guidance of where the organization is going and what they need for support. It's just absolutely critical.
No, that's absolutely great, and that connection is such a powerful part of the success of any leader. But more and more today, that marketing leader and that CEO business leader connection needs to be so close, because the marketing strategy is a business strategy in so many respects today.
And I would say also, sometimes I would say senior leaders also view marketing as a cost center. Okay. And you're just expending costs. The more you can demonstrate the value that you're driving for the organization, it becomes less as a cost center and more as a value driver. It was funny when I joined the first time, I think, with our CEO, he said, "Oh, you're just another marketer who's going to spend a lot of money." and we're not going to get a whole lot for it. And actually, you know, I think each year that I've been here, I've saved significant money and provided more value. So turn it upside down a little bit on its head. And so, you know, I just say, you know, in any role, whether you're in marketing or you're in sales or you're in finance or any kind of function, it's just always important to show and how you're demonstrating value moving the business forward.
I love it. No, I think that makes a ton of sense. Let me open it up. You know, I would love to, you know, see, you know, the folks we have on the line. What questions do you have? Go ahead and feel free to verbalize them now. You can also type them into the chat and we can bring those forward. But does anybody have a question in particular you're curious about, as Barbara has walked us through the story of how she's really transformed Allied Universal over these last almost 2 years?
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
So you mentioned that you brought leadership and it was part of the journey, and you know, and you talked about the CEO, but what about the rest of the executive team? Like, how did you sell to them that added value and that new vision and all of that?
Yeah, I mean, I will tell you a lot of listening. So my advice is when you go into any kind of new organization in your career, spend the first 60 to 90 days listening and asking different stakeholders what it is that they need and what it is that they're missing. Ask a lot of questions. And so in my first several months, it was working with internal stakeholders to kind of repair relationships, build relationships, understand kind of the lens on the marketing team. And so yeah, I would encourage anybody to do that if you're going into a new organization, is to ask a lot of questions. I also I do a survey every year with our sales enablement group, and we survey our sales force regularly on how we're doing with all different marketing aspects. And so once a year we get a read that way too, and then we address where we need to address or augment where we need to augment. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah. And I have one other question. I'm a question person. And you said you found a partner, and so Fathom was. Did you find Fathom, or was that already a partner with your organization?
Yeah. So coming in, we had a variety of partners, and we still have a variety of partners. Fathom was an existing partner, and really, I mean, it just was like understanding the team's strengths and the internal people's strengths and opportunity areas. It was the same with the agency. Figuring out what are the agency's strengths and how do you tap into them to make that internal team better. And Brittany and Fathom have been a terrific partner for us. I mean, when I need a strategic partner, Brittany is my go-to. And so, and it's really helped us evolve, our team in many, many ways, of pushing us a little bit beyond our comfort zone to move into new areas.
Great, thank you.
I think too, and I appreciate the kind words, Barbara. I look at it too as when you're coming into an organization or you're looking at your existing agency partners too, skills gap is a key. So can they help fill that skills gap? But are they challenging me? Because you could have a partner that is filling that skills gap, but are they actually challenging and leading forward? We have lots of conversations where it's like we can go a little bit further here, or did you think about it? And make sure that your agency partner is asking you those questions and is challenging to make sure that you're moving forward, because just like all the things that Barbara's been walking through today, of you're taking your executive team through this with you, you're taking your internal partners, you're taking your team. And so you need that partner on your side too, who's saying, here's what's next. How about we think about this? Instead of just being a vendor and checking the boxes. There is that opportunity, but have them challenge you and ask them to challenge you too.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to do reviews with your agency partners. So feedback is a gift. It's an incredible gift. And the more often you talk with your agency partners, just like you do with your own people, it helps. So everybody's rowing the boat together, and your agency partners are continuing to push you strategically. So don't be afraid to do a formal review of your agency partners. I do. We have discussions at least twice a year, and often on a regular basis, and I think it's very helpful.
Barbara, as we've been bringing this conversation forward of all the different people you work with, your internal team, your end stakeholders, your agency partners. How do you decide what's the right mix of how do you put your whole team together? What do you have on your team in-house? Where do you use a partner? How do you go through that process of deciding, well, what is the best way for me to achieve the vision that you set forward?
Well, it starts with looking first kind of at, your internal team and the skill sets that you have, and how do you evolve, the internal skill sets, and then where are the gaps? How can your agency partners help fill in the gaps and continue to push us forward? So as I mentioned, earlier on, as a marketing leader, it's helpful to have a journey of where you want to go. Establish where is the team now, where do you want to take the team in the next couple of years, and then assess how your agency partners can fill the gaps, and how can you leverage your internal team to start to get there as well. So having a vision is important.
I would also say you look at it as one team too. So a lot of the conversations, it's about having everyone at the table for those conversations, because one, it makes it more efficient for your time, right? You're not going to have 10 separate conversations, but then everyone can be hearing the same questions, the same conversations.
Yes.
I know what's happening in PR. So as a digital, I know what's happening in PR and what their priorities are. And those are all pieces that you're taking to stakeholders. But I think in terms of that mix and how you prioritize too, is don't be afraid to have everyone at the same table. Sometimes we let emotions get in the way, and it's like, ooh, is that going to be too sensitive? It's like, no, we all have to be having this conversation together and knowing what everyone's working on.
So we've talked a lot about bringing people together, right? And cohesion and collaboration. And then we're also, the reality of our time right now, we're 6 months into probably the most isolation we have all probably experienced in our lives. And Mackenzie brought this forward at the start of the conversation. She joined the organization, and 4 weeks later, hey, we have this global pandemic that's hit. Barbara, how have you navigated this shift of how do I operate in this pandemic world, and what tips or tricks might you have for the listeners here?
Yeah, we're all in this together. It's a strange thing, right? Our world changed kind of overnight. And my preference is to have my team, together live in person. I think that's the most effective way. But in absence of being able to do that, it's having regular conversations. So I do touch base conversations with everyone on my team, my direct reports, every week. And just so that we're aligned and that we know what's kind of going on and that we're following up. And then same thing is, we meet regularly with our agency partners. What I would encourage for sure, if you don't have time to do those things, get everybody together at least on a quarterly basis. So it's really worked well for us, as Brittany mentioned, of having all of our agency partners, the entire team together to hear what everyone's doing. Everyone can celebrate each other's successes, and we all talk about the roadmap of where we're going, in the future. And so I would definitely encourage you to do that. Even if you got 20, 30 people or whatever on a Zoom conference. I know it's not as easy as having everyone together in person, but it's a way to connect and get everybody on the same page of where you want to take it.
Barbara, can you share a little bit, this is COVID specific, but I think it's still a good model of don't be paralyzed. So we talked a lot about, especially at the beginning of shutdowns, of like, don't let COVID paralyze you. But I would also say, like, it's a good rule of thumb just in general of change. Like, don't let change paralyze you. Can you talk a little bit about that thought process and model you used?
Yeah, when COVID hit, I am sure everyone on this call was the same way. When COVID hit, it changed everybody's lives overnight. Okay, it just did. And everybody, for a period of time was in different phases, emotional phases of where you are, from whether you're angry or you're scared or you are, you're confused about how to move forward or you're feeling overwhelmed. All of those things are natural emotions when you're dealing with something like we're dealing with, right? And it is super important, to not let those things paralyze you and to kind of, give up. In fact, what our team did is we plowed straight forward. I mean, we continued to develop, against our marketing plan that we had in place. We did pivot a little bit because our business had obviously different business needs to deliver on, specifically related coming out of COVID. And so we did pivot a little bit in terms of activities. And we, had to pivot in terms of more video conferences and things like that. But don't let, an event paralyze you where you were not driving value and you're sitting still for a period of time. It's important to recognize where everyone is in the process, figure out how to get people back on that journey, that proactive journey of moving forward.
That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that, because I think that's key. And again, even if you take COVID out of it, it's understanding where everybody's at, but don't let it paralyze you. Because as we've been talking about, like, marketing leaders are driving change right now. And so we can't be afraid of that change and can't be afraid to take some of those risks, because we are trying to lead to outcomes. And so you do have to continue plowing through that plan, and you might pivot a little bit, but you still have to keep working towards it.
Yeah.
Great. I want to check back in and get a sense for any new questions that may have bubbled up for anyone participating on the conversation today. Want to create some space for any additional questions that have come up.
I have one related to vision, and that is, we did hear a lot about vision from you, both creating the vision, and there was a process by which you listened and engaged with your peer set to help inform that.
Sure.
But then also a point that you made towards the end there, which is selling in your vision. And so the question is this: how much of your strategy in creating the vision are you also thinking about selling it in at the same time? Are those part and parcel of the same process, or are you creating it and then thinking about selling it in?
They're the same process. So I always think about and dwell on, where do I want to go? Okay, where do I want to be? Where do I want to take this business? And then I think about how I can sell it in. What's the story behind it? And what I'd say, that it goes back to having a marketing plan in place really helps you try to articulate back to the organization. How is what your activities and marketing going to do to drive the business that you're at forward? How is it going to contribute to those overall corporate objectives? And so it's absolutely having a vision of where you want to go and thinking about how you're going to sell that in to senior leaders is incredibly important. I think you run into trouble when marketing is viewed as just a cost center and no one's seeing value out of marketing. That's where you start to run into trouble. You don't ever want to be in that position. You want to continue to move the business forward and make sure that you're contributing and driving value throughout your organization.
I think, Barbara, that highlights the importance of change management in your role. And, and I would argue, and seems like the work that I do with marketing leaders, almost half of the job is change management. Because the marketer uniquely touches almost every aspect of the organization. You're touching the technology part of the organization. You're touching customer service. You're touching the product. You're engaging with sales. You're engaging with finance office. And the marketer is uniquely in this position to, I think, bring it all together, because so much so the marketer is the one that has the insight on what's happening with the customer these days and the power of the customer experience. And so, you know, you bring forward this powerful concept around change management, change leadership, and you highlight, you know, one of the key elements of success in that is after you've established that vision, getting the key wins and getting quick wins, right? Because it's about inertia and momentum. You know, any tips you might have on, well, how much time do you have to get a quick win, and how intentional are you in your process to get that inertia that you need to push the organization forward?
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. You don't have a lot of time to get the quick wins. I mean, I will tell you, you know, when I first joined, that was the very first question I was going to get is, what are you going to be your quick wins? So what are you going to deliver that's going to show me that marketing is doing something different for the organization? And so literally, you know, we had to identify as a team, what are those things that within the first 60 days that we can do to demonstrate value, and that this team is going to operate differently than how it operated in the past. And so every year as part of the planning process, you know, we've talked about what are those quick wins within the first 60 days that we're going to get under our belt to, again, demonstrate value, get off to a really good start within the group. And so, yeah, I mean, think about that is, and they could be very simple. You know, for us, you know, we had, you know, a year and a half ago, we had a department who felt that, you know, we were not delivering on their needs. We were not a good partner. We were not helping with accomplishing their goals. And they were top on our list for the quick wins. It was establishing relationship and putting tactics in place to demonstrate that we can add value and be a partner. And it can be very simple things just like that. You don't have to generate loads of revenue from marketing activities right away. It may be just working to repair, you know, an internal relationship or, you know, or something else. So look for those things that are easier things to tick off, and always make it a point to try to include those in your marketing plan.
I think that's a strong point of sometimes we get so stuck into what are some of like the tactics I'm going to go do. Like, I'm going to send an email campaign. I'm going to get this branding launched. And I think that that piece of relationships, though, can sometimes be overlooked. And so making sure that that's a key piece of not only change management to be successful, but even as we've been talking about the marketing plan and the vision. If you don't have those relationships in place, you can launch the best campaign out there. It's not going to be successful internally if you don't have that trust and that buy-in from your stakeholders.
So we're coming up against the end of our time here soon, and one of the things that we've just talked about are quick wins, and we've been on this change journey, right? And you're about 2 years into that journey. I guess the question I have is, what's next? You know, where, because my sense is there's always another vision, there's always another opportunity to advance and take it forward. So after you've made the big changes that you've made already, I'm sure there's still more ahead. So can you give some insight into how you think about that, and you know, maybe share some?
Absolutely. So yeah, I'm first and foremost, I am so incredibly proud of my team. I've got great talent and I've got great agency partners. And so I'm really looking forward to where we go next year. And really my vision is to move beyond a very focus on foundational support to really move to augmenting value within our organization and differentiating us in the marketplace, and being far more efficient in the way we do that. So, you know, we now, you know, we track every activity, we have KPIs, we talk regularly about those things. Now we have to bring it all together to really make it sing as we go into next year. And so that's where we'll be focusing our efforts and moving forward. And you know, and I plan to continue to stretch my team and stretch the agency partners to even figure out how do we go even beyond that? What does next year look like? So as we improve our level of sophistication, I would say, and understanding of all of the different marketing elements, we need to keep moving forward and be thinking about also where do we go, not only in 2021, but 2022, 2023. So everybody continues to grow and we get more sophisticated along the way.
Yeah, I'm so excited about the direction that we're heading. And the interesting part too is when you look backwards. So like 2 years ago, could we have done this? Like we could have technically done it, but our team wouldn't, like the teams wouldn't have been ready for it. Our business wouldn't be ready for it, right? Our key stakeholders. And so I think that's an important part of like Barbara and I, we've had this vision and knew we were going to get here. But we have to make sure that you're doing everything at the right time. And so even as we think, you know, as we modify into 2021, it then informs 2023. And then that also helps the conversations with your team members and your agency partners, because it's telling us, okay, here's how we need to evolve our team to continue to be growing with Allied Universal.
No, I think that's absolutely great. I mean, I just think it's worth underlining the power of having a vision and also having the courage to work through that vision. Change leadership is not for the faint of heart. It's not an easy thing to do, but I think it's what we as leaders are called to do so often. And I think uniquely more now than ever before, the marketing leader is thrusted into this position, like it or not. You're in it to need to drive change. And Barbara, I just wanted to share a deep sense of gratitude and appreciation for you bringing forward both your expertise and your experience today in leading through this journey. And we're just so grateful for your partnership at Fathom, and so grateful for the time here today. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. So that will conclude our wisdom, or our great, for goodness sakes, that will conclude our remote roundtable that we have for today. Stay tuned for our next one that'll be coming. As always, feel free to reach out to Fathom, connect with us on the information you see on the screen, or hit me directly. Appreciate you all joining, and thank you.